Hello. It's your girl Karaleise. How you guys? Today we're going to talk about eliciting requirements, right? We're going to deep dive into eliciting requirements. I've already done a video on that you guys may have watched. There was some issues with that video though. The music was kind of too loud, etc. So I wanted to start over and kind of do some more on eliciting requirements that will be clearer, more to the point, to help you guys get started better in this. It's very important if you're going to be a business analyst. I want to spend some time and give it the attention it deserves. So in this video, we are going to talk about being able to have stakeholder interviews, like talking to your stakeholders, uncovering from them what the problem is so that you can have the information to go and decipher what your requirements should be. So we're going to talk about stakeholder interviews in this video. So don't skip around, don't jump around. It's all going to be good. And if you have not yet subscribed, okay, subscribe. It's going to be good, okay? If you haven't seen my videos, feel free to look at my other videos. And I have a ton of stuff on requirements, and waterfall, and agile, all that stuff. So you're in good hands if you subscribe to my channel. So please go ahead and do that, because I'm about to give you some really cool information that you're not going to find easily anywhere else. And also like the video so I can know that you like it and know what content I should keep making more of. And the videos that don't get likes, I'm just not going to make any more videos around that. So if I don't see people subscribing, I'm stopping. I'm not making any more videos, okay? That's a threat for you, okay? All right, so we're going to talk about stakeholder interviews, and we're going to dive into how do you start this conversation. First of all, how do you know who to talk to? And then how do you know how to start the conversation, and what do you say? Okay, how do you bring this across so that you get information from them and you learn things that you didn't know before? That's what we're talking about right now. Okay, welcome back. So the first thing you want to do before you even start prepping for your stakeholder interview, you need to figure out who are your stakeholders. Who are the people involved in your project? What roles do they play, and what information could you possibly get from them? So in most cases, if you're in retail, the most important stakeholder is your user or your customer, right? So if you're in retail, it's more customer. If you're on a business to business side, it's your users. So you want to be able to talk with them, but this is not always possible. Sometimes the company is very protective of their brand and their information. So they don't want you to expose anything or even kind of bother their users, right? They're very protective of their users or their customers. So you don't always have access to the end user. But that's not a problem, because if you don't have access directly, then you have access to the person who speaks with that user, and they can give you from the perspective of the user. So your support people would be great, because they're like your I call them proxy users, because they understand the users so much. You're talking to the users every day. They really have a good feel for what the users are going through. So it'd be great to talk to them. And because they're internal, there are some questions you can ask them that you wouldn't want to ask an end user. So, and they have better context as well as to what you're trying to solve for. So your customer service people, your support people, your sales people as well, account managers, these are great people to have where you can't get access directly to the user. You can get to them. And even if you did get access to the user, they're still great because they're so close to the beat of everything. They understand from both ends, the user's perspective and the company's perspective, and the feature, functionality, or product that you're selling. That would be just great to get that information from them, right? So you make your list of who you need to talk to, and then based on the objective of the project and what you're trying to do, you start to craft some questions that you think you need to ask. Some questions you'll know, because as you saw in that video about elicitation, there are different ways to elicit requirements. It doesn't always have to be an interview. You can do observation, right? You can just watch and see what's going on. Maybe you see how people are coming in and joining the lines and the frustration with that. You can watch and see certain things that you don't have to ask. You can dig down into documentation as a part of the way you elicit requirements. So go read up on, case studies. Go read up on reviews that they put out. Go read up on manuals and release notes and stuff like that. That will give you a great backdrop as to what is the world, what is the domain that you're trying to solve for. So get that background knowledge as well, and that will help you in your elicitation efforts and coming up with better requirements because you have that background information from the documents that you've read. But you can't take away from the value of talking to people, right? This is a very valuable exercise to talk to people and to get that one-on-one personal information flowing between both of you. Now, it's great if you do the prep work by doing the research and the documentation, by observing. So you get into the interview with some background knowledge because you've already seen it, you've already read about it, right? Now you're in the interview to kind of get the real personal touch and the stories that you couldn't get from your other elicitation efforts. So once you're in that meeting, you set a meeting, you have a focus or you have a objective. So you make that be known, you set a meeting, the person accepts, and you meeting time comes around and you're meeting with them. What do you do? What do you ask? How do you get the ball rolling? So the first thing you really want to do is you want to set that focus. So you say, well, the purpose of this meeting is to get a better understanding of XYZ process, right? So you set that groundwork. So they will know that you're there to just get information to improve. You're there to help them. You're there to be an ear listening to the pains that they have so that you can do what? Go out there and make an improvement to make their lives better. You have to set that stage, right? You have to make it clear that your purpose is to get a better understanding so that you can help with the process to improve it, so that they can see the benefits, so they can have more time, spend less time doing something more monotonous, that they can get the reports quicker, that they, like all the things that would be the great benefits that they want to see realized, which you don't know yet, right? You don't know all of them yet because you're still eliciting requirements. But the very fact that the project is approved, that management has put money and resources on this thing, means that they have an outcome they want, right? So you just need to kind of dive deeper into what the pains are to figure out how you can actually get to that outcome. So you set the stage for a number of reasons. You don't want people to think that you're there to kind of watch them and to report on them and to start the blame game, right? It's their fault why things are going awry because they're not doing the process right and all that. You don't want them to feel like they're being judged, right? You're not there to judge them. You're not there to poke holes in their process. You're not there to figure out who to blame for things going wrong, right? You have to make this, without saying it in that way, you have to make it clear that your objective is just to understand. And with that understanding, it will be a very neutral effort to make it better. Nobody's going to be pointing fingers at anybody. It's not a blame game. There's no need to, push back and forth. It's really something that they have to really understand so that they can be open with you. Right? So whatever words you can use to get that across, use it and be as neutral, be as, open to any kind of, even if they start complaining and start pointing fingers, you don't get involved in that, right? You bring them back to the focus, which is understanding the problem without it becoming a finger pointing exercise. So here's how you do that. When you're in the room with this person, and this is a one-on-one stakeholder interview, by the way. You could have workshops or you could have like a group discussion, and that's fine too. But I find sometimes just having an individual conversation is helpful as well. And then sometimes you want to talk at the team level, you can throw it out. You can ask questions at the team level, and that might be helpful. So sometimes it depends on the time that you have. Sometimes you don't have time to go through every single person. So you just group a bunch of people with the same roles together, or even different roles, but they all have impact on the project you're doing. You get them together and you ask questions and anybody can chime in. Or you could be doing one-on-one just to understand individually what does this person do. So this advice I'm giving you could work for either one of those situations. Now, one more caveat is that this is in the case where you're trying to come up with I would say like a new feature, or you're trying to uncover the problem with an existing process to come up with a new process. The tips I'm going to give you, sometimes they can work if you're trying to implement something, but typically this is not the way you do for implementation. These are not the questions you'd ask for implementation project. Does that make sense? So let me explain what an implementation project is. Let's say I have a system over here with all these data points, and I have another system over here with these data points. So implementation projects typically are I'm transferring or migrating data over from this project or this system, over to this system because we're going to be working over here. Or I want these two systems to talk. I want this to be able to push data over here and this push data over here. Or it could be only push, only pull, it doesn't matter. The point is that these two systems already exist. Their functionalities exist. What I need to do is to configure them and pass the right data fields, map the data fields properly so that I can get the output that I want. So it's not a creating a new feature kind of project. It's how do we implement this? How do we configure this properly for it to be useful for us kind of project, right? So the questions I'm telling you about is not for that scenario, although probably it could work, but it's more for a case where you're coming up with new features and you're trying to understand the problem to invent the solution, right? Not necessarily trying to configure an already existing solution. So without further ado, here are some of the top questions I like to ask so that I can get a good understanding of the problem and I can know what else to ask and how to keep probing. So one of the first things I like to ask is, what are the big challenges you face with XYZ process or XYZ feature? What are the big challenges? Because I want you to think about what's the most painful thing, right? What's challenging you, what the problem is. All of what I'm going to ask is getting to the root of the problem. Because many times, by the time it gets to us, they've already agreed to do this project. Some executive have signed off on the budget for it already. Like, it's already been approved. So they're expecting to just do this. And what they've approved is a solution. We're going to get the CRM. We're going to improve this process. We're going to implement this new feature. But they don't often dig as deep into the problem that gave rise to them having to have this project. So it's not too late for you to figure out the problem, right? It could just be that they say, we need to solve this problem and you need to go in and ask the questions to solve it. Or they'd have already decided the solution and just thrown money and resources at it, right? It doesn't matter. Whether they've approved a solution or not doesn't matter. You still have to spend the time to figure out the problem because in the weeds, in the details, you're going to have to figure out what that requirement should say, right? So they may have approved a high-level solution, but you're going to have to dig deeper so you can either help them to arrive at, knowing that this solution may not be exactly matching the problem or just being able to articulate it yourself. So it's all good all around to get back to the problem. So when you ask a question like, what are the biggest challenges? You're forcing the interviewee, the stakeholder, to think of all the problems that they have. What's the biggest ones? And then they'll bring that to the fore and tell you, and that will give you the focal point as, okay, what should I solve first? Well, the biggest problems that they have, right? So they can tell you that. Also, it's an open-ended question, so it doesn't assume anything. It doesn't prescribe anything. It just lets them be as open and honest with you. And when they answer that, then you can start probing further down to figure out, okay, how much deeper should I go to get more and more close to the root cause of the problem? The other question I like to ask is, what problems do you and your team face? So it's kind of the same as what are the biggest challenges, but depending on how they answer, it may not have covered everything. So if you ask them, what does you and your team face? Now, typically I ask you first, and then I'll ask about the team, because sometimes the team problems is not an individual problem. As a team, we face this problem, but as a person, I don't face that problem. So I might be very good at writing front-end code for CSS. I'm not, actually. That's just an example. I'm not. But the team itself has a problem with front-end development. There's not enough people on the team that has the skills, so all of the work goes to this one person, and then it becomes a burden, and blah, blah, blah. So there are challenges that the team faces that the individual doesn't face. So you need to remember to ask about the team challenges as well. I like to also ask about the tools. What tools are you using is what I like to ask, because they're solving the problem somehow right now. If they're having this problem that they need to solve to make money for the business, they're finding a way around it. It could be in people's heads. It could be that Excel sheet somewhere. It could be buried in files, whatever. They're doing something. It may not be efficient, but they're doing something right now. And I want to know, what is it that you're doing? What tools are you using? What software are you using? How is this interconnected? Like things like that. So when I ask about the tools, then when they give me the answer, I start asking more and I get deeper and deeper into the problem with those tools. And maybe there isn't a problem with the tool. It's just the process around the tool. So we'll find that out too. Another one I like to ask is, describe a day in your life working with XYZ process or XYZ feature. And that's a great question too, because it lets them tell me all about their day, right? I come in the morning, first thing I do, I open this report and I look at that, then I do that. And they walk through the entire day with you, and you start to see the points where there's repetition, where there is inefficiency, and you can start getting a mental picture of the life of this person, right? And you start thinking to yourself, if I eliminate this and this and this, then this person's life just gets better. And you this is your focus, right? You're trying to figure out, how can I improve this person's life with the features I'm going to come up with the process I'm going to come up with, so that the company can receive the benefit, but this individual person can also get, their time back, can be focused on other things that are more valuable to their job and stuff like that, right? And then lastly, there's a lot of questions I asked. I'm not going to go through the whole thing in this video, but I'll stop at this one. How do you share and collaborate with other team members? So I want to know, how do you have regular meetings? Do you share documents? Do you have to hand in a report every week? Like, what is the things that you deliver, and how often, and how do you collaborate? Because if people aren't talking to each other, that's where processes can break down, because there's not enough communication. So trying to find that out is also very important. So those are some of the questions. I mean, there's others like, is there any time dependencies in your project? If there's any compliance or regulations, things that you need to be aware of. So there's a lot of other things I'll ask, but it depends on the type of project and what I'm trying to solve for. But those questions, I think, that I just listed are ones that really helps to be to start the conversation. It's general enough and neutral enough that they can tell you what they feel comfortable telling you, and then you figure out what you need to drill down into. It tends to lead to a very good communication, a very good start, and especially when you set the framework that this is the purpose of this is to help you. The purpose of this is to have a process that's better for everybody. The purpose of this is to make sure we meet our goals without the burden that it's bringing right now. Like, all of those things really, really does help the interviewer to communicate the right things, and interviewee to feel comfortable telling us the things that we need to know, because all of what we're doing here is for the purposes of understanding the problem. None of this conversation should be geared towards a solution. You're not there yet. You should be having this conversation to fully understand the pains, the challenges, the frustration. And then when you understand that well, then you can flip into solution mode, and you can have more interviews later on to see the solution that you're coming up with is going to work. But don't try to mix the two, right? Fully get the problem. Dive into the problem very deeply and absorb that. Think about that. Don't have the same conversation, the same meeting where you're talking about the problem and the solution. Let them really explain the problem to you. Maybe take another day or two to absorb it, think about it, talk to other people, get your bearings around it. And sometimes they even forget things and tell you that afterwards. Oh, I forgot to tell you this was another problem and blah, blah, blah. So don't be in a rush. I mean, you have a timeline that you have to meet. I get it. But separate the problem conversation from the solution conversation, and you'll definitely have better success that way. All right. So I hope this little talk was helpful. Again, like and subscribe. Check out my website, karaleise.com. And make sure you sign up to my email list. I'll be sending out some stuff shortly that will be very helpful to you guys. And also, you can book a consultation with me if you want personalized help on your new job, like knowing where to start. If you have an interview coming up, there's a bunch of other services I offer. So go to my website or go to the link below this. So I think I have it in the description. Go there and book a consultation so you can talk with me. And yeah, that's how I hope to help you to be able to do great business analysis, especially when it comes to stakeholder interviews. So hope this chat was good, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.